Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we will discuss about GitHub workflow actions with the help of Azure Bicep. We'll learn how to deploy the Bicep project from the GitHub actions. Hi, my name is Rakesh Suryavanshi and you're watching Be a Learner. To start the demonstration, I'm already logged into my GitHub account and switch to the organization where we would like to create our GitHub repository and perform the deployment with GitHub. So this is the organization which we are going to use for this demonstration. I'll create a new repository. We'll give it a name called the biceps workflow. You can provide the description. For this demonstration, I'm going to keep this repository as public. I'll add the README file and then I'll click here on the create repository button to create this particular repository. The repository has been created with the default README file. Any code which we are going to add to our GitHub repository, it will be available here with the code section. There are various other tabs also available with GitHub, which is out of scope for this demonstration, such as these issues, pull requests, actions, and so on. We'll discuss a couple of them, such as the actions, settings, and the pull request. Let's go ahead and add our code. For that, I'm going to first of all clone this particular repository on my Visual Studio Code. To clone the repository, I'll click here on the drop-down button code. There are multiple options available to clone the repository, such as the HTTPS authentication, SSH authentication, or you can use the Git CLI authentication to download the code on your machine. So I'm going to use the default HTTPS credential because I'm already connected to my GitHub account on my local machine. So I'll simply copy this particular URL and then use it in my Visual Studio Code. So here is my Visual Studio Code. I will click here on the clone git repository. I'll paste the URL which we have copied. That will ask to select the location where I want to clone. The repository is cloned successfully. As you can see the message here, I would like to open the repository here on my Visual Studio Code editor. Now we are ready to start adding our code. First of all, I would like to add some directory structure where I would like to add the code. So for now, I'm going to add the src as my root location for the source code. And in that src folder, I'll create the folder called biceps. And within that particular folder, I'll add some biceps files. So let's add the file such as the storage account.biceps. So we have already covered the biceps programming in our previous videos. The link is given in the description above. If you would like to learn more about the biceps, you can go to those videos. Considering you have some idea about the biceps, we'll focus on the development aspect of the biceps in this particular video. So let's say in this video, we would like to deploy a storage account from our biceps project. And this is the code for the storage account deployment, where we are having two parameters, the name of the storage account and the location, and with that parameter we are basically deploying the storage account. It has got the default properties hard coded at the moment, such as the kind, minimum TLS version, and the SKU, though you can change these properties if you want to, like this. With that, our biceps project is ready for the deployment. I'll commit the changes into the repository. I'll use git add dot to add all the file which I have added, and then I'll use the git commit to commit my changes to the repository. The code is successfully pushed to the remote repository on the main branch. Now if I navigate back to GitHub URL, I should have this directory available over there. So here is my code. I'll refresh it. And these are our code file which we have just now added. With that, we are ready to set up a workflow which will deploy the storage account. It's not the case that we are deploying the storage account. That's why we have given the file name as a storage account. You can give any name such as the main.py biceps or any other name which you would like to. Now with that, we are ready to create the workflow. To create a workflow, you can go to the actions tab, and here in the actions tab you have the different number of templates available which you can use to define your own workflow. So just to give an idea about the workflow is the event-based execution which you would like to set up on your repository which will perform actions based on the particular event. So let's say event could be a code commit or push, could be pull request, issue creation, resolution, or adding some comments, or any different type of events which are available with or supported by GitHub. On those events you might want to perform certain number of actions. So those are the actions which you basically set up with the help of workflow. This is just a short summary of the workflow. So in this case, we would like to deploy the Azure biceps code to our Azure subscription, and that's why we want to set up the workflow. We know that to deploy the Azure biceps, we have two options. One is the deployment through the Azure CLI or the deployment through the Azure PowerShell, which I can show you here. Biceps. This is the Microsoft documentation which provides how do you deploy the Azure biceps with the help of Azure CLI. You can also find the detail about deployment through the Azure PowerShell or Cloud Shell if you would like to proceed with that. In this example, we want to deploy with the help of Azure PowerShell. So that's why we are going to use these commands in our workflow. So now we know that we are going to use the Azure CLI. So we need to have the tasks related to Azure CLI. In the predefined template, we do not have any built-in task or the template available for deploying to the biceps, and that's the reason we are going to use a custom template, or we are going to define our own template. So I'll use the simple workflow template, which is the default template which you can use. I'll click here on the configure button. So this is the simplest. I'll go to the preview section. This is the simplest custom template which we have. Here in the template, we can provide the name of the template and then events. As I mentioned, workflow is based around the events. So the number of event or the type of event which you want to attach to your workflow, you can define those events here on attribute. So this is the on attribute which says that on which particular event you want to trigger this particular workflow. This is the attribute which you may want to use in case if you want to perform the manual execution or set up a manual execution for your workflow. And then you have the different number of jobs collection. So jobs is the collection of job which it contains. So it could have a multiple jobs. So by default, there is a build job given when we have configured a default template. So this is a build job which is running on Ubuntu latest, which you can define it through the runs on attribute. And then you have a steps collection. Steps collection basically defines the number of steps. It could be one or more steps which are going to be part of the given job, which in this case build job. So as you can see, we have different number of steps available. Now in general with GitHub, there are two types of steps available, which is users, which you can define with users keyword or the run keyword. So users keyword, it means that you would like to use a predefined built-in actions which are available on the GitHub marketplace. If you want to use that particular built-in action, then you use those built-in action with the help of users keyword, and then you can provide the parameters to that users keyword as well. For example, and then if you would like to run a simple script like bash script, PowerShell or Azure CLI script, you can run those kind of a script with the help of a run attribute. So remember, if you want to use a custom template or the GitHub action template, you can run those action templates with the help of users keyword. If you want to run a simple script, run with the run command or run attribute. Okay, this is our simplest template. We can simply go ahead and check in this particular template. I'll check in this template. Actually, before I do that, I can simply change the name of the template. So I would like to call it Azure deployment. So that's the name it will show in the workflow actions section, and rest of them I'll keep it as is. So I'll commit the change, and here is the workflow action which we have just now created. Okay, and as you can see that as soon as I've checked in the file, and it has triggered the default biceps deployment template. At the moment we just have the simplest, we do not have anything to be added here. I would like to change the name of these templates, so I'll say Azure deployment or CI/CD. I don't want this to be added, as we know that we are going to use the Azure CLI command to deploy our biceps template. Hence we need to use the, or we need to log into our Azure subscription so that we can run the Azure CLI command. Because if you look at these commands, these will run on a specific Azure subscription. So first of all, we need to log into Azure subscription, and that's the reason we need a Azure login action or commands. So for that, I can simply search AZ login just to get an idea if there is a built-in action available related to AZ login. Yes, we do have. So this is the AZ login which is available, and it has been created or provided by Microsoft Azure itself. And if you look at this particular tick sign, it means that the action is been verified by GitHub and you are okay to use it. If it is not been verified, then it is going to be your own risk if you want to use it. So it is highly recommended, if you want to choose a particular action to use in your workflow, make sure that it has been verified by the GitHub. So this is the workflow, or this is the action type which we would like to use at the very first time. And if I select here, and you can find the detail about the different parameters which you can use with this action type. You can also find the details which parameter is optional, which has a value, and what type of value we are going to expect on this particular parameter. If you would like to get more detail about the action type, you can find the more detail here on the marketplace. So GitHub Action has their own marketplace section where you can find the list of all the different actions related to a particular task, and then you can get the detail about those actions types as well. So considering we are going to add this action type, you can simply copy here. If you want to change the version of your action type, you can change to a different version. I'll just update the indentation. There you go. And then for now, these are the different parameters which are available with this particular action type, which is Azure login. So I'm not going to use all the parameters because I know that we need to use this credential. So basically, credential uses the output of your RBAC command, or the service principal output, which we might have in our subscription. So if you have any RBAC which has been created, that particular RBAC, basically RBAC output, you can use as a credential. So for that, first of all, I'm going to create a new RBAC. So here is the command azad create RBAC, and then name of your RBAC, and then you assign the role to your RBAC. At the moment, we are assigning a role at the subscription level, but if you want to assign a role at the resource group or the management level, that is also possible. So I'll run this particular command, and that will create a RBAC, and it will assign the contributor role onto the subscription. As you can see, it is assigning a contributor role on this subscription, and this is what the output we have received. Output contains client ID, secret, subscription ID, tenant ID, and some other details. I am going to copy this particular entire section. We'll go to I'll first of all commit this change, or I'll just open a different tab here. Here on the settings of our repository, we'll go to the secret, and we will add this Azure RBAC output as a secret here. So I'll just copy everything here as a secret, and we will call the Azure SPN secret, which is service principal secret or credential. We'll add it as is. So this is the secret which we have just now created. So what we can do now, we'll copy this, the name of the secret, and here we will define that particular secret just to, which you can use it like secrets dot the name of the secret which we have just now created. So that will basically log into the Azure subscription with the secret which we have just now copied. Let's first of all commit this change before we do anything else, and I'll commit the change. I'll go to the actions, and you can see that we have action automatically triggered, which will this time try to log in. Meanwhile, I will go to my Visual Studio Code and perform a git pull to get the latest. So next time we are going to manage all our changes right here from this Visual Studio Code, so that it will be easy for you guys to view and follow the changes which I am going to perform it here. Now next, what we want is we would like to run the Azure CLI command. So for this, I'm going to use the name, which is the name of this step which we would like to use. So let's say AZ biceps build deployment, and then we'll use a run command. With that, I'm going to run a multi-line statement, and here we are going to run the same AZ biceps command which we have it here. So I'll copy this command. This is the one. Okay, so this is a simple AZ biceps command, which is AZ deploy to a group which is a resource group, and then it will create a deployment name, and then you need to pass the name of the resource group on which we would like to deploy our resource. So let's give it a name of the resource group. So let's say this is the resource group where we would like to deploy our changes. So this is the name of the resource group. Next, you need to provide the name of the template file, which is the file, the biceps file. So for this, I'm going to give it a name of, which is the storage account for biceps. Remember, I've just used the relative path for the bicep file, but obviously it's not going to find the file path as is because we haven't specified the working directory. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to specify the working directory, and for this you can use the GitHub built-in template. Also there are some built-in variables available, so variable name workspace, which can be used to find out the exact repository or working directory, and then from that working directory I want to go to src and then biceps. So this run command will execute on the particular working directory, and within this working directory I know that this is the file which I would like to run as the biceps. Now with that, we have our biceps deployment template is ready, which is very easy and simple to deploy. I'll commit the changes with the commit. Okay, so we are ready with the changes. Now let's look at if it has triggered the action. So the action has been triggered successfully, and we'll see what changes it's going to deploy. So it's failing to deploy because it says no such directory has been found. Let's look at why. Okay, so I just missed the double quotes, double space here, curly braces. So this is the, you should remember that we need to have a dollar and then double curly braces as the keyword, and then we should be fine with that. The deployment has been completed successfully. As you can see here, it has created a new storage account to the resource group which has been specified. The name of the storage account is randomly generated as per our biceps template definition. And if I refresh our storage account resource group, this is the storage account which we have created with the help of this deployment. So this was the simplest deployment which we can configure with the Azure biceps. Now let's modify or add some more enhancements to our biceps deployment. With that, I'm going to add a new step to the biceps deployment, which will have a build and the deploy. So we are going to divide this single stage deployment into two stage deployments. So we'll have a build stage and then we'll have a deployment stage, and we'll add a approver and reviewer. so that we can have more control on the deployment which it's going to perform. For this, we are going to copy the job which we have. So on this job, I'll just simply add another type of job. So here we are calling it as a build job. So this we'll say a deploy job, and we can give the name of the job, which is a display name, if you understand, on the Azure biceps deploy. This is what the job name on the biceps deploy, and similarly we can add the name here as well, which is biceps build. And here at the build stage, we don't want to run the command directly, so what we are going to say here is what if. So basically it will just run the changes, and it will show the changes with the what if attribute. So this is what the attribute which you can use to verify the changes what it is going to run on the template. Okay, now next we would like to add the environment section. So environment is basically the approval gates which we are going to add it here. So we'll call the dev as an environment, which we would like to say that it's going to deploy into dev environment, and this dev environment we will set up our approval and reviewers configuration in our GitHub repository. I'll show you in a moment. We would also like to set up a dependency between build and release, the build and deploy stage. So for this, otherwise what happens if I run the pipeline as is, both this build and deploy stage will run in parallel, whereas we would like to set up a dependency. To set up a dependency, you can use the keyword needs. Needs means it will need a predefined step before it runs the current step. So we are going to say it needs build stage to run the deploy. So until unless build is going to be succeeded, deploy is not going to run. So it's going to be a sequential configuration. That's what it is. Now we are ready with our two-stage configuration. So let's check in the code again. Git commit. I'll push the change, and this will run the trigger to deploy the changes. This is what it is. At the moment we know that it will not show any changes, because from the biceps point of view we haven't made any changes since our last deployment. So let's do one thing. Let's change one of the attribute of our storage account. So I'll go to the property, and here I'll modify one of the property. Let's say allow public access to false. That's what the change I'm going to do. Let's commit the change. So let's verify the code change here before we check the deployment. Yes, we have the code change. Now let's look at the actions. So this is the action it's going to run. And now if you look at our deployment, we have got two stages. One is the bicep build and then bicep deploy. So bicep build will just expect it to show the changes which it is going to deploy. So it has deployed the changes to both the stages. But if you look at carefully, if you have observed carefully, it hasn't asked for the approvals. So the reason for that is because we haven't configured any approval to the environment. So to configure the approval, we'll go to the settings on the repository. We'll go to the environments, and this is the environment which is just now created from our biceps workflow. Here you can go to and required review section and add the reviewers if you want to. So this is the GitHub user I have. So I'm going to set this as a reviewer. So now next time if I'm going to run the change or run the pipeline, it will ask for the reviewer to review. So if you look at the build stage which is completed, now it's showing that it is going to modify or update one property. So it's going to update the storage account, and from the update point of view, it's going to add this property to false. So this was the changes which it is going to do. And as a reviewer, I can review the infrastructure changes or my biceps infrastructure change. and I know that it's okay to modify the changes. And if you look at here, or the summary, it's basically waiting for the reviewer to confirm the deployment. So as a reviewer, I can review it, which I did, and now I can approve the changes and I can provide the comments, which is optional. Once the comment as the reviewer confirms the deployment, it will deploy the changes. Reviewer's history can be found it here, and there you go. The deployment is started now. So this time it will deploy the changes. These are the different steps. While it's deploying, let's do another thing. We'll add a parameter file. So this is the parameter file which I have added to deploy the changes to my storage account. At the moment, the storage account is getting deployed from the default value of the parameter, which is the default value of the storage account name and the location. So same parameter which we have defined here on the our parameter file. And now this parameter file we would like to include in our deployment. So for this, we are going to use the parameter. So dash parameters, and then you can specify the name of the parameter file, so which is the parameters.json. That's the JSON file it's going to use. Similarly, I'll add the same parameter file here on the create section. So what will happen now, the deployment will use the biceps file and the parameter file which we have provided in the command. So I'll commit the changes. So our previous deployment is succeeded after my approval, as you can see here. Now let's look at the parameter deployment with the parameter options, as we have added the parameter file. First of all, let me see if parameter file has been added. No, it is not. So it will fail because I haven't included the git add command. So I'll add the git add command. So let's see if it has added the new deployment. Last time it has failed because it hasn't found the parameter file which we have used. This time it should work fine. So this is the deployment which has been triggered from biceps. You can find it here on the resource group, because at the moment we are executing our deployment at the scope of resource group. That's why you will find those deployment at this resource group scope. Here are all the deployments which we have triggered, and you can see that this time it's running the az deployment group command with the help of this parameters .json. So now let's see what are changes it's going to do. So it says that it's going to create new storage account which with this particular name, which is the name which we have specified in our parameter, and it will not modify the existing storage account. So this is the way the bicep deployment works, and this is how it is different from the Azure Terraform, because it's not maintaining the state, so it doesn't know what is being deployed with the last deployment. Because as we have modified the modified the parameter section itself, so it's considering as the different deployment, and it's not going to modify or destroy the existing storage account. So with that, I'm going to approve the change as we did in the last stage, in the last time. Now, if you would like to modify the existing storage account, you can basically update the parameter and modify the changes, like we did in our last round when we updated the allow public access property with the existing storage account. I can anytime go ahead and check the current execution which is going on, where in which step it is right now. So our deployment is completed successfully with the reviewers what we have set up. This was about the setting up the Azure Biceps deployment with GitHub Actions, which is a multi-step deployment. I hope you have found this useful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll create some more videos on the Azure Biceps and the GitHub Actions with the different type of application deployment. Till then, thanks for watching it again. See you in the next video. Bye.